there's a question that almost no one likes to ask. Not because it's difficult to understand, but because it's difficult to face. A simple question.
Direct.
Quietly uncomfortable. What truly separates the people who build wealth, impact, and freedom from those who work their entire lives just to survive? This question doesn't arise in moments of comfort. It appears at the end of the day, when the noise of the world fades. When you look at your own life and feel, deep down, that you're giving your all, but receiving far less than you could. Many people respond too quickly. It's luck. It's being born into the right family. It's opportunity. It's knowing the right people. It's having the money to start. These answers are calming because they remove the responsibility. If it's luck, it's not your fault. If it's inheritance, you had no way to compete. If it's opportunity, someone else simply had a better chance. But John D. Rockefeller did not accept those answers. He was born into an ordinary family. He had an absent, unstable, and often irresponsible father. He grew up in an environment where money was scarce and security was non-existent. And yet, he became the richest man in modern history. Not by chance, not by magic, and definitely not just by intelligence. Rockefeller realized something that almost no one else does. The real difference begins before money exists. It begins with how you think about the world, how you relate to time, how you deal with small choices, those that no one sees, but that build everything. From a very young age, while other boys spent every penny they could get their hands on, Rockefeller kept track of every penny that came in and went out. Not because he loved money, but because he understood that control generates power. He didn't see money as immediate pleasure. He saw it as energy, as a tool, as something that needed to be respected. And here comes the first shock of reality. Most people work hard, very hard, wake up early, be punctual, deliver results, push yourself beyond your limits. Even so, she ends the month tired, frustrated, and with the feeling of always being behind someone. This creates a dangerous internal conflict. If I'm doing everything right, why am I not getting anywhere? This is the point where many give up. Others rebel. Some simply resign themselves to the situation. Rockefeller did the opposite. He understood that it's not enough to work hard. You have to think differently. While many were asking, "How much will I earn today?" he asked, "What does this build in the long term?" While others sought comfort, he sought structure. While many spent to alleviate emotions, he used money as an extension of a greater vision. Now stop for a moment. Look at your own life. How many financial decisions have you made based on emotion? On impulse? By comparison with others? How many times has money been used to fill a void and not to build freedom? That's a tough question, but a necessary one. Because the real problem is rarely a lack of money. It's a lack of mental clarity. Rockefeller wasn't guided by his feelings in the moment. He was guided by what he wanted to build. And that requires something rare. Inner discipline. The discipline to say no when everyone else says yes. The discipline to wait when everyone else is rushing. The discipline to invest in silence while others seek immediate applause. Here's a point that confuses many people. Some say, it's all about discipline. Others say, it's creativity. Some say, it's a vision. And also those who believe, it's networking. The truth? All of this matters. But none of it works on its own. Rockefeller understood that wealth is not an event. It is an ongoing mental process. A process made up of repeated choices, invisible habits, unpopular decisions, and a vision that does not depend on the validation of others. And here comes the question that changes everything. What if what you believe about money is incomplete? What if you're trying to win the game, using rules that don't work? Because maybe you've learned that money is hard to come by, that getting rich is dangerous, that those who have a lot always lose something. These ideas didn't come from nowhere. They were absorbed, repeated, normalized. Rockefeller grew up observing financial instability and decided he would never live at the mercy of chance. He didn't hate money. He understood it. And understanding generates power. While many see money as something external, something that either happens or doesn't happen, Rockefeller viewed it as a direct reflection of a person's internal organization. If your mind is chaotic, your results will be chaotic. If your vision is short-sighted, your gains will be too. Here's a crucial point. Mediocrity is not a lack of talent. It's a lack of conscious intention. Most people live on autopilot, reacting, surviving, paying bills, waiting for Friday. Rockefeller lived in strategic mode. Every action had a purpose. Every decision was connected to something bigger. And no, that doesn't mean he wasn't afraid. It means that he didn't let fear decide for him. Now, let me tease you. What if what truly separates those who thrive isn't how much they know, nor how hard they work, but how they think when no one is watching? How do you think when you fail? How do you think when you receive money? How do you think when you have to choose between immediate pleasure and building a better future? These moments define everything. And here's the biggest cliffhanger of this chapter. What if you're much closer to change than you think, but stuck in a mental model that has never been questioned? In the next chapter, we'll explore how success changes decisions, relationships, and the very perception of freedom, and why so many people sabotage themselves just when they start to move forward. Backhand index pointing right before continuing, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Comment below where you're watching from, and if this reflection has resonated with you. The journey is just beginning. There is a powerful and extremely dangerous myth about success. The myth that when money arrives, all problems disappear. That life finally falls into place. That decisions become easier. That happiness automatically comes as part of the package. John D. Rockefeller discovered early on that this is not true. Success doesn't define who you are. It exposes you. He amplifies his virtues and also his inner conflicts. That's why many people manage to make money but can't keep it. Others advance quickly and then collapse. Some come very close and sabotage everything at the crucial moment. It's not a lack of ability. It's a lack of internal preparation. Rockefeller understood something essential. Money changes the environment, but it reveals the structure of the mind. When you have limited resources, your decisions are reactive. You deal with the urgent. You pay bills. You put out fires. When the money starts coming in, something changes. You then have a choice. And choice is a heavy responsibility. With choice come new questions. Who to trust? Where to invest time? What really matters? Who walks with you? And who is only there out of necessity? Success isn't just financial. It's psychological. Rockefeller realized that without emotional control and clarity, money becomes an amplifier of chaos. While many see success as a destination, he saw it as a transition. Not as the end of the journey, but as a change of phase. That makes all the difference. Artists, creators, and entrepreneurs who started from scratch experienced the same shock. Walt Disney's first studio went bankrupt. When he finally achieved success, he realized he needed to become someone much bigger than the creative artist he was. As Steve Jobs grew older, he lost control of his own company. Success didn't protect him from making mistakes, but it forced him to mature. How many people do you know who have improved financially, but worsened emotionally? More money, more anxiety, more conflict, more wrong decisions. Because money doesn't create balance. It demands it. Rockefeller understood this profoundly. He knew that wealth without purpose breeds emptiness, and wealth without discipline breeds destruction. Therefore, while others spent money to prove something to the world, he invested in building something that no one had yet seen. And here a crucial distinction arises. There are people who want money to appear successful, and there are people who want money to be free. The difference between these two mindsets is enormous. The first seeks approval. The second seeks autonomy. The first spends to impress. The second invests to secure the future. And now stop again. What do you want money for? For status? For comfort? For security? For freedom? There is no wrong answer. But there is an unconscious answer, and that is the most dangerous one. Because when you don't know why you want to get rich, money starts controlling you. Rockefeller was clear-headed. For him, money was a tool for control of one's own destiny, independence of opinion, building something lasting. He didn't live for money. He made money work for a greater vision. This understanding changes everything. When success begins to arrive, it tests his moral limits. Do you uphold your values? Abandon your principles? Trade time for greater gains? Lose relationships along the way? Rockefeller understood that success, without structure, leads to collapse. Therefore, he structured his own life with clear internal rules: daily discipline, expense control, planning, constancy. While many celebrated gains, he was thinking about sustainability. Now comes the major conflict of this chapter. There are many paths to success. Invest, to undertake, create products, innovate, to produce art, scaling businesses. But there is no true success without mental consistency. You can choose any path. If the mind is not prepared, the result will be unstable. And here arises an uncomfortable provocation. Perhaps the problem isn't how you try to make money, but who you've become while trying. Because if you carry guilt, fear, anxiety, and insecurity, money only amplifies those feelings. Rockefeller cared for the mind with the same seriousness with which he cared for finances. He understood that disorganized thinking leads to bad decisions, even with plenty of capital. Therefore, the more successful he became, the simpler things got. While others got lost in excess, he organized himself. While many surrounded themselves with flatterers, he valued disciplined people. Here's a rarely told truth. Success alienates those who don't keep pace with their own inner growth. And that hurts. Many prefer to sabotage their own evolution to avoid facing loneliness, change, or responsibility. But Rockefeller did not shy away from this discomfort. He knew that growing up requires breaking free. Now, let this question resonate. If success came tomorrow, would you be ready for it? Would you know how to handle major decisions? Would you know how to protect your energy? Would you know how to say no without guilt? Or would money become yet another source of tension? This chapter isn't about earning more. It's about providing for others. Because winning is an event. Sustaining it is an identity. And here's the final hook. What truly sustains success is not money. It's the mind capable of wielding it. In the next chapter, we'll delve into the heart of this construct. The power of the mind, of choice, and of vision, and why some risk everything while others remain trapped in comfort. Backhand index pointing right if you're enjoying this journey. Subscribe to the channel and comment on which path to success resonates most with you. Share this video with someone who needs to understand this now. Every great achievement in human history has been born twice. The first one invisible, silent, inside the mind. The second one is visible, concrete, in the real world. John D. Rockefeller knew this, even before science or psychology could explain the phenomenon. He understood that no external wealth can be sustained without a solid internal structure. And this is exactly where many lose the game. Most people live by reacting to the world. Few consciously choose how they will position themselves in relation to it. The mind is the true battlefield, and choice is the weapon. Rockefeller didn't believe in fixed destiny. He believed in direction. While others accepted reality as it was presented, he asked, how can this be organized in a better way? That simple question shaped everything. Decades later, Napoleon Hill would study this same pattern by analyzing hundreds of millionaires. He realized that all of them, without exception, shared something that went far beyond intelligence or effort. A final decision. It wasn't a wish. It wasn't a hope. It was an inner commitment so deep that it shaped every daily action. Hill would call this a defined purpose. Rockefeller called it personal responsibility. Walt Disney envisioned entire worlds before drawing them. Steve Jobs envisioned experiences before products. Picasso said that first you needed to imagine, and then you could create. This is not magic. It's mental direction. The mind needs to know where it's going. Without that, it gets lost in comfort. And here arises the first major dilemma. To follow the safe path, or to heed the call of one's own vision. Comfort is seductive. It promises stability, approval, predictability, but it comes at a silent price. Unrealized potential. Rockefeller could have lived an ordinary, safe, predictable life. He could have followed patterns, but he chose to take calculated risks, not impulses. Risk is not recklessness. Risk is responsibility applied with vision. And that distinction changes everything. Most people confuse intuition with emotion. But Rockefeller relied on an intuition trained by observation, discipline, and data. He observed trends. He analyzed behaviors. He planned various scenarios. His choice wasn't based on guesswork. It was based on clarity. And here's a crucial point. Every choice excludes something. When you choose growth, you exclude stagnation. When you choose discipline, you exclude immediate comfort. When you choose vision, you exclude short-term approval. This exclusion breeds fear. And it is precisely at this moment that many change their minds. Because choosing requires emotional maturity. Rockefeller wasn't seeking external validation. He knew that if he depended on the opinions of others, he would never make progress. And you? How many important decisions have you postponed for fear of judgment? How many times have you chosen okay instead of extraordinary? The power of the mind lies in the repetition of choices, not in a single, great act. Every day you choose. What consumes? How does it react? Where to focus? Who do you believe in? These small, accumulated choices build one's destiny. Rockefeller chose discipline when no one was watching. He chose consistency when no one applauded. He chose vision when there were no results yet. And that requires something rare. The ability to wait. The average mind seeks immediate gratification. The extraordinary mind builds systems that pay for themselves over time. Napoleon Hill discovered that persistence, underpinned by a clear vision, is the decisive factor that separates winners from quitters. But persistence, without purpose, leads to exhaustion. Therefore, the choice needs to be aligned with meaning. Rockefeller viewed money as a consequence of organization, not as an emotional goal. This perspective prevented him from acting out of desperation. Now, let me ask you a direct question. Are you choosing what builds your future? Or just reacting to what comes your way today? Because reacting is exhausting. Choosing liberates. Every time you make a conscious choice, you strengthen your identity. And identity sustains results. Here enters the second major dilemma of the chapter. Follow the rational strategy or trust your intuition. Rockefeller didn't see them as opposites. He integrated the two. Strategy without intuition is cold. Intuition without strategy is dangerous. Balance comes from experience. He made mistakes. He adjusted. He refined. He never abandoned the vision. He only corrected the course. This mindset protected him from paralyzing guilt. Mistakes weren't failures. They were feedback. This perspective completely changes the relationship with risk. When you're not afraid to make mistakes, you act with more clarity. When you understand that every choice teaches you something, fear loses its power. And now comes the most uncomfortable part. What are you willing to sacrifice to reach your full potential? Time? Comfort? Approval? Old habits? There is no growth without conscious sacrifice. Rockefeller sacrificed impulses to gain structure. He sacrificed immediate pleasure to build a legacy. And here's the cliffhanger for this chapter. Perhaps the greatest risk of your life is not trying and failing, but never truly choosing. Every great journey has a breaking point. A moment when moving forward seems irrational. An instant when everything that has been built up to that point is called into question. An inner silence in which the mind asks, almost begging, is it worth continuing? This point is the abyss. And no one, absolutely no one, who has built something great has gone through this life without facing it. John D. Rockefeller knew this place very well. Before being remembered as a symbol of wealth, he lived through periods of uncertainty, harsh criticism, and losses that threatened not only his businesses, but his own emotional stability. What separates those who cross the abyss from those who return is not strength. It's inner structure. Most people believe that failure is the opposite of success. Rockefeller knew that this is an illusion. Failure is not the end of the journey. It's a stage in the process. But to understand this, emotional maturity is needed, something that is rarely taught. When losses occur, two reactions arise. Some people internalize failure. I'm not good enough. It never works out for me. Maybe I wasn't born for this. Others externalize it. The market is unfair. People sabotage. The system doesn't work. Rockefeller didn't choose any of those. He asked, "What is this trying to teach me?" This question changes everything. She transforms pain into data, error into information, defeat into intelligence. This is where many abandon the path, because learning from failure requires humility, and the ego prefers giving up rather than being corrected. Rockefeller faced fierce public criticism. He was accused of immoral practices. His image was attacked. Instead of reacting emotionally, he did something unusual. He adjusted his structure. He created systems. He delegated better. He organized processes. While many defended themselves, he evolved. And that requires something few possess: inner control under extreme pressure. Now, let's talk about the part that nobody likes to admit. The abyss is not only external. It is internal. It's when you realize that growing up hurts. That change requires leaving old versions of yourself behind. That some relationships don't survive your evolution. This moment creates a profound dilemma. Is it better to take a risk and lose, or to stay in your comfort zone and never discover what you're capable of? The comfort zone doesn't hurt, but it slowly corrodes you. Rockefeller understood that prolonged comfort breeds complacency, and complacency breeds fragility. Therefore, he did not fear constructive discomfort. He sought it out. Each failure revealed a weakness. Each crisis showed where to strengthen. This is a powerful mental shift. Most people run from pain. Great people learn how to use it. But that doesn't mean hardening your heart. On the contrary, Rockefeller developed something even rarer: a balance between reason, emotion, discipline, and creativity. Reason kept business organized. Emotion gave meaning to decisions. Discipline sustained consistency. Creativity allowed for innovative solutions in times of pressure. When these elements work together, wealth ceases to be luck. It becomes something built. Now, observe a curious pattern. Many people give up just before the turning point, not because they failed, but because they couldn't handle the tension between the old and the new. The abyss is exactly that: the space between who you were and who you are becoming. Rockefeller crossed that space with something very simple, yet powerful: continuity. He didn't despair. He didn't make impulsive decisions. He didn't abandon his vision out of momentary panic. He adjusted, refined. It persisted. And here's a crucial point: persistence is not stubbornness. It's emotional intelligence applied over time. Stubbornness ignores feedback. Persistence uses it. How many times have you persisted in doing something wrong out of pride? How many times have you given up on something right because of emotional exhaustion? These moments define destinies. Rockefeller knew that decisions made in an extreme emotional state are almost always bad. Therefore, he created psychological distance before acting. He thought. He planned. Only then did he decide. This protected him from self-destructive choices. Now, allow yourself to reflect. When you face losses, do you react? Or do you respond? Reacting is automatic. Responding is conscious. This difference is what separates those who grow from those who stagnate. The abyss also tests values. When everything is going well, it's easy to uphold principles. When everything seems to be falling apart, they are put to the test. Rockefeller maintained his strategic ethics even under pressure. Not out of pure altruism, but because he understood that trust builds structures that money alone cannot sustain. Reputation, consistency, predictability. These assets don't appear on financial statements, but they sustain empires. Now we come to the psychological hook of this chapter. Perhaps the most difficult moment of your life is not a sign to stop, but confirmation that you are going through a turning point. The abyss does not exist to destroy. It exists to select. Select those who are willing to mature. Those who accept learning. Those who understand that growth is not comfortable, it's necessary. There is a quiet moment that comes for everyone. This is not the time for the greatest achievement, nor the time for the greatest loss. It's that moment when a person looks back and realizes that life wasn't just about winning or losing, but about who they became along the way. John D. Rockefeller reached that point, and it was there that wealth took on a new meaning. Because when you surpass a certain financial level, something curious happens. Money ceases to be the problem, and starts to be the question. What was the point of all this? What will remain when I'm no longer here? What was truly worthwhile? Rockefeller understood something that few understand. Wealth without meaning is not victory, it is empty accumulation. He could have been remembered simply as the richest man in history, but he chose something greater. He chose legacy. Legacy is not what you possess. It's what remains when you are no longer present. And that completely changes the way they act. For years, Rockefeller built wealth through discipline, vision, and consistency. But in his later years, he realized that money is merely concentrated energy, and energy needs direction. Without direction, it corrupts. With purpose, it transforms. That's why he began investing heavily in education, science, health, and human development. Not out of vanity, but out of understanding. He understood that true power lies not in controlling people, but in creating structures that outlive you. And here we arrive at a central truth of this chapter. Wealth that doesn't generate impact dies with its owner. Wealth that generates value multiplies. You can feel it intuitively. There is a huge difference between having money and building something that matters. Most people never stop to think about it. They get caught up in the race of earning, spending, repeating. Rockefeller broke free from that cycle. He realized that success isn't just about how high you climb, but how much you can lift other people up in the process. And that requires a rare level of mental maturity. Because to build a legacy, you need to transcend the ego. You need to understand that recognition is temporary. Applause passes. Isolated power weakens. What remains are systems, ideas, and values. Rockefeller began to see money as an extension of responsibility. The greater the resources, the greater the responsibility for organization, direction, and impact. This perspective completely transforms the relationship with wealth. Now, reflect honestly. If all the money you ever wanted came to you tomorrow, who would you become? A more carefree version? Or a more anxious version? Because the truth is simple and uncomfortable. Money doesn't change character. It accelerates it. If there is clarity, it expands. If there is confusion, it intensifies. Rockefeller knew this. That's why he worked so hard on both the mind and the numbers. He wasn't just looking to grow. He was looking to sustain that growth. And sustaining it requires an invisible formula that runs throughout this entire journey. Mindset plus action plus continuous learning equals legacy. Mindset, because everything starts with how you think. Action, because thought without movement is illusion. Continuous learning, because the world changes, and those who stop fall behind. This equation doesn't depend on luck. It depends on awareness. And here is perhaps the greatest lesson from Rockefeller. True wealth is waking up every day knowing that your life is aligned with something greater than yourself. Freedom is not about doing whatever you want. It's about not being a slave to what doesn't make sense. Purpose isn't just pretty talk. It's a decision-making criterion. Impact isn't about the number of people who know you. It's about the depth of transformation you generate. When you understand this, money finds its natural place. It ceases to be an obsession and becomes a consequence. Now, look at your own journey. You don't need to be Rockefeller. You don't need to have billions. But you can apply the same principles. Mental clarity, emotional discipline, conscious choices, long-term vision. This already puts you ahead of most people. The great illusion is believing that legacy is something distant, reserved for big names. Legacy begins with small, repeated decisions. In the way you use your time, manages resources, treats people, reacts to difficulties. All of this builds something up, even if you don't realize it now. Rockefeller simply scaled up something that anyone can experience in essence. And here is the final reflection of this journey. Thought balloon: true wealth begins in the mind. Money is just one of the forms it takes in the physical world. When your mind grows, your life expands. When your vision deepens, your results are sustained. When your purpose matures, your impact remains. This series isn't about getting rich quick. It's about getting rich consciously. It's not about accumulating. It's about building. And now, the choice is back with you. You can continue living on autopilot, or you can take control of your own direction. Backhand index pointing right. If this content resonated with you, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this message with someone who needs to take the next step. Sometimes, the right idea at the right time can change an entire life. The journey ends here. The legacy begins now.